when we lost a deal, I would like to think we would kind of dissect what went wrong. I don't know if we actually did that well, though. I think we were so upset and just disgusted that we didn't even want to think about it. And we just
dry heaving in the office.
Well, I think, especially at first, I think we took everything so personally.
We still take things personally. I think I think us as people, we take things just like our personality was just
everybody does. Yeah.
No, you.
But okay.
Well. This is the Startup Different podcast. We're here to bust startup myths and give you the insights you need to help you reach your startup dreams. In this recap episode, we're diving back into our chat with Catherine Bell, where she dropped some incredible gems about mixing purpose and profit as an entrepreneur. Whether it's building a strong team culture or turning mistakes into growth moments, we've pulled together the best insights for you to level up your business game. It's Startup Different. Hello, folks. Welcome to Startup Different. I am David Singinson. With me is Christopher Singinson. Christopher.
Hey.
What's up, man? How you doing, my dude?
Not too bad. I think you're a little too dressed down for this episode, though.
I was wondering why you were so tense before we started shooting. It's
I'm wearing
because you
a
had
collar.
that singer ready to go.
I am wearing a collar because this is a business show.
It's
and
a
you're
hood,
wearing
not
a
a collar. It's just an extended collar.
It's like that question: is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh, well, a hot dog's not a sandwich, right?
This is we don't want to go down that road.
Let's go there, man.
All right, is a hoodie a collar? All right,
come on. We're a startup show. I can wear whatever I want to the startup show.
Add your comments and
let us know what you think. Or is the hot dog a sandwich? Also interested in your hot take on that. Hey, Catherine Bell, The Awaken Company, pretty cool.
Excellent.
Very interesting. Definitely the slant of that episode was incredibly HR focused, but it was pretty cool to talk to someone that I thought, on the one hand, aligned with a lot of.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily HR focused. It's more like culture focused. I feel.
Well, that is HR, isn't it?
No, I think culture is broader than HR. HR just makes me think of hiring and firing and stuff like that. Whereas I think culture really encompasses a lot more what she was talking about, the leadership aspects.
It transcends more of the company.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying it's culture.
Okay, well, fair enough. Okay. But I think, and yeah, for sure, there was a ton of culture stuff and a tons of leadership stuff, which you could argue is HR or not. I guess it's kind of its own category as well.
For sure.
But I think it was just interesting to talk to somebody who, again, kind of aligned with a lot of how we feel about this stuff.
Yep.
But also had the data.
Yeah. She definitely came armed with much better data than I think our stuff is more anecdotal, whereas she's actually right deep into that.
Well, we do know some stuff. In the book, we talk about empathy a lot. The Alpha Myth talks about that section of the book. Talks a lot about how if you are an empathetic leader, if you're just generally a better person, quite frankly,
yep.
And you treat your employees better, what does that mean? That means investing in them and emotionally and investing in their success.
Yeah. Then
they're going to do better. And there's tons of data we actually have to support that. And actually, Queen's University in Kingston had a study. It's in the book, but it was all about this as well. That retention rates were higher, people were happier, all this kinds of stuff.
Yeah, people want to go to work places that are enjoyable, fun. Yeah. Engaging, a little bit challenging, as well. So yeah, absolutely.
But it doesn't come naturally to some people, and I think that's just tying this back to Catherine's career, sort of up to the Awaken Company. She was part of this Blue Era group, which was she was working with a team that was basically consulting companies so they could do this.
Yeah.
I almost feel I think I said this to you after the interview, that she feels to me like an early adopter of empathy as a business, as an effective business function.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that she's had tremendous success because of that too with the Awaken Company, because she was one of the earliest on people to be okay, hey, actually, rather than pushing people and kind of more of that old style of management, actually investing in people is a better way to get better outcomes. And she saw that pattern happening pretty early.
Completely agree.
So, so what did you think? She had some interesting different techniques that she talked about. What do you think when you think of mindfulness? I think it's complicated for me. But what do you think about? I'm taking it away from you.
Oh, geez. Mindfulness. Yeah. I think was very unmindful when we were running our company.
What does that
I was
mean?
very much just in the trenches, trying to keep up, trying to keep my head above water. Whereas I didn't have a lot of opportunities to really, reflect on what we were doing. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Hey, we're taking a short break to tell you some exciting news. Chris and I wrote a book. Surprise! It's called Startup Different, the myth-busting blueprint for your multi-million-dollar business, and it's available now. Like our show, we're trying to pay it forward to our fellow entrepreneurs. The book busts 33 business myths, tells some of our most hilarious stories, and gives you many of our best tools to build, scale, and exit your business. You'll find the book on all major online retailers, including Amazon. Check it out. We think it's pretty great. And now, back to the show. Well, okay, so I think of mindfulness as sort of like a sort of centering, okay? Like you can worry about a lot of different things in your life or in your business, but being like mindful is understanding kind of like what gives you like that anxiety. Like I think about our conversation with Cynthia R. Scott as well, where she has that app, right, for children that helps them like go to sleep, Gold Minds. And a lot of that, though, stemmed from like her own anxiety. And that anxiety she helped deal with that through mindfulness. It helped her kind of like understand, give her tools to manage it. And I guess what I never really thought about is that in the startup journey, there's a ton of anxiety. I think you were probably more pessimistic than me, just broadly speaking, just because that's, not to put words in your mouth. Yeah, sure.
I guess I'll take that.
Yeah. Cool, Dave.
Thanks.
But I think that, having, to me then mindfulness would be giving you a tool set to be able to manage that, to be able to manage like yourself on a day-to-day basis to make you more optimal at work is what I think of it in a business context.
Yeah. I agree with that. And one thing I would sort of add is one of my favorite quotes here from our interview with Catherine was, "Everybody's a leader."
That was cool.
And I think that's really interesting if you take that approach, because I know when we've, engaging your staff and having them being really present in the business and really contributing is challenging sometimes, especially if nobody really wants to be a staff member who's always just sort of taking orders. You want to have some of that control over your destiny.
Yeah.
So if you take that mindset that, hey, everybody in this business is a leader. Okay. And actually, I like to take that almost like a step further and make it a little bit more business oriented by saying, everybody, even in an organization, can be an entrepreneur. You can be working a job and you can be looking for opportunities to move that business forward, whether that's, reducing costs, increasing revenue,
whatever it is you're doing in the business.
Exactly. So I really liked that quote about everybody's a leader. And I think a lot of this comes down to that culture. And if you can put people in a position where they can really contribute, as if not just by doing the work in the business, but the work on the business. How can we strategically think further beyond?
Just devil's advocate for a second. I agree. I like the sentiment of it. I like the idea. What if you phrased it just differently? Does it mean the same thing to you? So what if you just say everybody's important? Okay. Because I think
it just doesn't feel like there's any action to it. And I think when you're a leader or you're an entrepreneur, you are doing something.
I see. Okay? So you're talking about an intrinsic motivation.
I would definitely acknowledge that everybody is important, but so what?
But
sorry to be very blunt.
I think so. The danger of where do cultures like this go wrong is when they're not delivered with authenticity.
Right.
So if you tell everybody you're a leader,
everybody's important.
You're the intern. You're a leader, intern. Okay. Like the thing is, there's some practicality here to how that message is delivered, and I think that it's not like literally going and saying everybody's a leader. But it is saying like you are an intelligent person that can be self-motivated, that can move the business forward.
Yeah.
So I don't know if but I like the spirit of it. I'm not sure if I'm totally agreed on the term, but I like the spirit of it.
Okay, so let's take it a step further because there's another quote that I really liked that Catherine brought up. She said, "People support what they create."
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I think
just think about that one for a second, because when I think about our business, where we had our employees really step up and show leadership and stuff like that was when they were highly engaged in creating something and pushing an idea forward. They come up with an idea and they want to see the company implement that idea. They're acting as a leader. They're acting like an entrepreneur,
they are,
and they are very much supporting because they are creating it.
So maybe it's about empowerment.
Yeah.
Right? You're actually allowing like you think of the other end of the spectrum would be a boss that micromanages,
Yeah.
right? So I think the concept that you give people an opportunity. Actually, you were just telling a story a minute ago about how I guess it was a couple minutes ago now, but before the show, about how when we had our first software development intern, good guy Austin, shout out to Austin, I see you, buddy, on his first day, you said to him, today you're going to publish code that is going to be in production that customers are going to be using.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. That was my goal for him on his first day.
And so you were trying to tying this together, you were trying to get him invested in having created something and being more interested in the success of the business right away.
The other thing too is I want him to go home to his friends and family and say, when they ask him, what did you do on your first day? He'd be able to say, I wrote code, it's in production, and it's helping people right now, which is incredible for an intern on their first day to be able to say
that's unheard of. I think that's really what you have to bring those kinds of experiences to the table.
Yeah.
Like impact experiences to the table as a startup is essential, because remember, you're competing with other really brand recognized company. Oh, they could go get a job at, I don't know why Tesla's in my head, but Tesla, or come work at your startup. So why would they come to you? Well, it's because they got to be actually delivering something more meaningful for.
So now, can I circle this back to another
Wait,
thing?
you're in your notes.
I know.
You're driving the show. You take it away. Christopher says that.
She also said we must lean into our discomfort. And I thought that was really interesting because Chris, with Austin on his first day, having a brand new employee put code into production is pretty uncomfortable.
Oh, cool.
I had to lean into that. I had to say, this is important.
What made you want to do that? Like, we never even discussed that as far as I remember.
I think we were the small company. He was probably employee number 4 after you and I were 1 and 2.
And we had the culture failure.
Yeah.
And then we brought on
maybe 5. Might have been.
He's 5, I think.
Yeah. But still, we were in that mode where we legit, and I was worried that I needed help from a development perspective. I needed that internship to go really well because I need to get some sleep. And so, I was thinking, what is going to make this person want to stay? What is going to make them want to be bought into this company? And I think that was where it came from.
I think those are all true statements, but I think for better or for worse, I think it was rooted in fear. It was in fear of failure.
Most things that I do is rooted in fear, but yes.
Fear of me, for example. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. Pushing outside, like making yourself uncomfortable. That's something too that I'll tell you how I made myself uncomfortable with staff. If you're so interested, I know you're driving the boat here today.
Sure.
Or car, I guess. Do you drive a boat? Do you pilot a boat? What do you do with a boat? Come on, you love boats. Anyway,
I don't know.
Okay, whatever. Thanks for that. But for me, so I like training our salespeople. So the funny thing about training salespeople is that it's not just that it's a drag on your time. It's that you'll actually win fewer deals for a little while because those salespeople need to get into the market, do the demo. Now, you as a founder or as a senior salesperson that's training them, Matt our senior sales guy would work with a lot of the new reps. And we would get on those calls to try to avoid totally blowing the deal.
Right.
But at some point, they got to go, fly by themselves, and they will lose deals.
Yep.
Period. And that's an uncomfortable reality and perhaps it's a bit paradoxical that to have a good salesperson, they need to lose deals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Isn't that painful as a founder? Somebody's listening going, God.
Scary.
I don't want to lose any deals.
Especially when you're starting a company, the opportunities are hard to come by.
Yeah.
And then to hand them off knowing there's a pretty good chance that...
Well, you don't put them on the big ones.
No.
Right? You get their feet wet on the smallest deals, and you emphasize to them, look, we want you to get this deal. But at the same time, if you don't, we're not shutting the lights off.
Right.
Right. You want to have some pressure, but not too much.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Where are we going next, Chris? Keep driving.
I really like this other one. Catch people in the act of awesome.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
That
reminds me of Fire Memos of Octavia Gray.
Yeah,
for sure.
Good point.
It's all about celebrating the wins. And wasn't this the 5-to-1 ratio thing?
Yeah, we've had this wrong, apparently. I think it might be memorialized in the book that we were always saying 3-to-1.
3-to-1, yeah. Unfortunately, the new edition of the book.
So you better explain this. So what is the 5-to-1, 3-to-1 we're talking about?
you need to have 5 wins to make up for 1 loss.
Or setback.
It's a setback or whatever.
Something bad that happens.
Something bad. And I think that's really true because you're just so invested in the business that the setbacks that happen are like a sledgehammer. And there's so many, like I think I call them in the book gut punches. There's so many gut punches when you have a startup, things that just don't go well, like crazy support issues, code that doesn't work, deals that you should have won but you don't for some reason, or opportunities not only that you don't win. That's the worst part about sales too. It's not just that you lose, it's that somebody else won.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like a double whammy on some of this stuff. So it's hard to have these losses. Or even if you're just if you're really in the early days and you're just trying to drum up business and you're just getting the door slammed in your face over and over again, like it's just like gut punch, gut punch, gut punch.
Yeah.
Like,
think of 5 to 1 and you're in sales and you have to probably talk to 100 people to close a deal. Wow.
That's it depends on the business. Depends on the business for sure.
Yeah, no, it can be.
But I think that's really interesting. And the important thing is to understand 2 things. One is that this is real. That our survival brain is wired this way. So if you're feeling down about your business, it's not that unusual actually. And it's probably a function that as entrepreneurs are more optimistic than people generally, on how they think. Didn't she say something about this too? I wonder if I have it in my notes. It was something like it was like 90 or like 80% of our thoughts are like negative.
Negative, yeah.
And it's all of a sudden this kind of like she's painting this picture of like we're actually kind of like down on ourselves a lot.
Yeah.
So knowing that, celebrating these wins, maybe having a product like Fire Memos or having the Awakened Company folks like talk to you and explain this to you is hugely valuable. Because then you'll be able to manage this stuff.
On that same thought, when we would have setbacks, the right thing to do is to postmortem them, to do an evaluation, like what went wrong. But that was tough to do, and there's another one of those, like leaning into your own discomfort. Okay.
Yeah.
When we lost a deal, I would like to think we would kind of dissect what went wrong. I don't know if we actually did that well, though. I think we were so upset and just disgusted that we didn't even want to think about it. And we just
dry heaving in the eye.
Well, I think, especially at first, I think we took everything so personally.
We still take things personally. I think it's in our. I think us as people, we take things just like our personality was just
everybody does.
No, you.
But okay. But I think that if I look back, I hope that in future, when we have setbacks, we can do that evaluation of it and what went wrong. Lean into that discomfort, and so that we're not like just walking away and salvage value out of a setback. What can we learn from this? Sometimes that's really tough. Although I do also really like the idea of celebrating the wins, because you do have to sort of offset all those losses.
I think that the setbacks are important, and you have to go at it with the spirit that I explained in the episode, which is the joy of being wrong. You have to go like, wow, okay, we learned something today that's going to help us be more successful in the future. The problem is sometimes those learnings really suck. Yeah. Like I remember one time we lost a deal by $1,000, which in this context of the deal was like, I don't know,
nothing,
2%. And it was just like, wow, that doesn't help me. You know what I mean? Okay, so I guess next time we know to be a little bit cheaper. Like that's literally what it was about.
Just out of curiosity.
Oh boy.
I know sometimes when we did there were large opportunities. Some clients, when you would lose, they would actually kind of give you a debrief.
Yeah.
What percentage of what percentage of the time would that actually happen? Where they would give you a debrief?
It would depend on the nature of the engagement. If it was an RFP response, you could, and you lost, you could basically always get a debriefing call.
Yeah.
Now the quality of those debriefing calls varied. Yeah. Some organizations were very good, and they'd have a rubric, and they'd be like, "This is how you scored. This is how they scored." You can get a copy of the other responses if you really want to dig into it. Which, by the way, I highly recommend you do, because
for sure.
What you learn, among other things, is how the competitors are positioning their products, which helps you build RFP responses in the future.
Correct.
But so that was fine. But I would say on like our sort of our 2-yard runs, just using a sports analogy, like our small deals that we didn't get, rather than like a 15-yard pass, just putting that out there. Those 2-yard runs, very rarely would you get debrief. Basically, you're just told, "Hey, you didn't win. See you later," and there's peace out. if they responded to you. Sometimes you just ghosted.
Is the saying actually 2-yard runs? Because if you get 4 downs and you always get 2-yard runs, you only get 8 yards. And then
2 to 3 yard runs. It's an average. Okay.
Like, is it 3-yard
Just
runs?
cut that, producer Graham. We don't. If we could actually just remove Chris from the episode.
Well, it's your analogy. I'm just pointing out that it might be flawed.
Okay, bro, you don't always run the ball on a. Okay, is it Canadian football or American football?
Well, I was referring to him.
American football. Okay,
but,
so
yeah.
on some, usually you run the ball on the first or second down, you throw the ball on third down. So we would still have a good mix. It wasn't. We weren't just always running for a couple of yards.
Okay. All right.
Jesus.
Okay.
Other than I'm like, hey, Chris, you can drive the episode. As soon as you find an analogy you don't like, you're just like, wham. Anyway.
Just seemed to be a flaw in your logic on that analogy. That's all.
So actually, though, there was something related here, though, that I think is important. And this ties, I'm going to drive for a second, which ties to the vulnerability, being vulnerable, being able to show vulnerability as a leader is one of those things that also trickles down to other people in the organization. So I think the actually important one of the other benefits of doing these debriefing calls that's a little bit difficult to quantify was that I was showing to the other salespeople when I lost deals, I would say we lost the deal.
Right.
I wasn't be afraid of it. I'd say we lost it. This is what happened. I got a debrief, whatever. Young sales reps have a tendency to just not talk to you about the deals all of a sudden. So I'd be like, how's that deal going? And I'd be like, oh, we're working on it. And then it'd be like a few weeks later, I haven't heard anything. And I'll be like, okay, so we obviously lost the deal. Like, what happened there?
Right.
And it's okay. You're not gonna get fired for losing a deal. We need to understand though what went wrong, right? And it is kind of this.
So why didn't they feel comfortable bringing that up earlier?
Just newer reps. Like if they came from another organization where they didn't have that kind of psychological safety to be able to talk about it. Yeah. Or, they'll get advice from like family members and stuff that's just based on other expectations.
Okay.
But I was always like, look, I'm not like happy that we lose the deal, but I'm not like mad at you unless you called the customer an a-hole or a boss hole or something like that.
Love that term.
Like, that was so funny. That's going to be in the vocab for a while.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the trick there though is you need to signal vulnerability and then in some cases literally show. I think your example was around code.
Yeah, the way I did that was when I made a bug in our software that caused a problem, I would just fess up to it in our development meeting and show, hey guys, can anybody see the bug? Can anybody see what I did wrong here?
Yeah.
And then people would see it or not see it, but I would point it out and I would say, okay, so I don't know. Here's why this happened. I didn't test this enough. I didn't use the right testing procedure. And then this didn't come out in QA and then it got into production and this happened to somebody and this shouldn't happen.
One thing I'm really thinking about, I think it's very natural in software development because, as you said, there's the error message. Like mistakes are part of improving.
Just make errors.
You constantly make errors till there are no more errors, and it works, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how you build code or build products, software products. But I just think it's kind of interesting that this, that like humility, that approach. There are just parts of the company that I don't think it translates well to. So another example that I think of often, and I think we actually struggled with this. Yeah. One of those things is, especially when you have a little bit of traction, you start to think like, well, my product's so good. You have customers that have support issues.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, they obviously used it wrong. They're using the product wrong.
Blaming the user.
We would do that all the time. Yeah. And it just seeps into the organization because, the customer service person who was helping them was probably worried for their own livelihood and their job. Yeah. They maybe don't feel psychological safety for some other reasons, whatever. Or maybe we're just reinforcing this culture of the user did it wrong. There's a PEBCAC, problem exists between keyboard and chair. That is a great software acronym, PEBCAC, ladies and gentlemen. But I think that experience, though, that was something we didn't really address that well.
That mentality is dangerous.
It is.
Yeah. Especially
it's very
in the
common,
support
though.
department.
Very common.
Yeah. I know we did a ton of work on building systems around our systems to notify us around errors and things like that. So we would sometimes see that users were running into errors in weird ways, and we would dissect how they were getting there, and then we would make changes to the software. So cool. I think we did actively try to do that. But yeah, there is a bit of a I don't know,
user
bias.
Blaming is what I would call it.
Yeah.
This kind of like, well, clearly we made it so well. And I think it's part of kind of like buying into your own hype a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And it happens. And so, well, I guess one thing for you watching today is just if you're in an organization where maybe you're finding that often you're blaming the customer for something, I think that's a real gut check moment to be like, wait, is it us? Because it could be you. And don't get me wrong, there's still crazy customers sometimes. And we would have moments where like support people need to vent.
Yep.
And you just sit there and you listen to them and they'll get it out and you can empathize with them because, you know, if you're a founder, you probably did some level of customer support at some point.
Yep.
And, but I do think it's an important learning that if you're getting a lot of that, if you're blaming users a lot or end users of your product or software or whatever it is, it's possible that the issue is actually with you and not with them.
Yep.
So
can I just end in one last quote on this?
It depends. Does the quote paint me in a really good light?
You're going to like this one. You know how
I heard Graham laugh at that.
I like this one a lot. Business as a force for good.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes business gets a bad rap.
We talked about this.
Big business, you know?
Yeah.
And I just
Bad
think
profits,
that, you know, if you can set your culture where you're focusing on the positive outcomes. So for us, it was very much, hey, we made people safer. We saved lives. We did like that sort
we
of
helped
stuff.
save lives.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah.
Incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
So I just like to end on that one. Business can be a force for good if you have that right culture. Yeah.
That's lovely.
Oh, thanks.
Look at us. Hey, look at us.
We're all friends again.
We're all friends.
Are we past the is a hoodie a collar?
And is a hot dog a sandwich? We'll find out after this. Tune in next week. Anyway, but this episode brought to you by Oscar Mayer. Anyway, that's a nice way to end it. And I think it's very true that there are, you know, I actually would say most of the time, small, medium businesses are doing things that are very impactful and very helpful and drive a lot of value. For the most part, depends on the industry. And I think that's the thing we want to focus on. You know, thinking about that negative mindset that we have mostly negative thoughts, it's easy to gravitate towards companies that charge sort of what we call bad profits, you know, hospitality fees for hotels or airline, like a billion different airline fees and stuff like that. So I think it is kind of nice to let's recenter and focus on the good that business can also create.
Completely agree. I just think I explained it better.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Next week, we'll see if Chris is part of the episode next week. Thanks so much for joining us at Startup Different. Check us out on social. And we'll be back next week with another expert interview, and we are looking forward to it. We will see you then. Hey, you made it all the way to the end of the episode. Nicely done. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so the almighty algorithm can help others find us. Want more from Startup Different? Check out our book, Startup Different, the myth-busting blueprint for your multi-million-dollar business. Follow us on social. We're big on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also check us out at startupdifferent.com. Special thanks for this episode to Graham and our friends at Toronto Podcasts. Visit them at torontopodcast.ca. See you next week.